We're gonna get started with our farm show activity today in about 5 minutes. We're just gonna wait for everyone to hop on. And then the calving corner is going to do an introduction today. And then we're gonna get started with our activity. So we'll just hang tight for a couple minutes here and then we'll get started.
I need to stop video. Light on. Is that too much flash?
All right, for everyone who is joining us, I'm Amanda at the Whitaker Center. We're gonna get started with our farm show activity here in about 3 more minutes. The calving corner is gonna give us an introduction and then we'll get going.
Hi, everyone. It's Miriam from the Calving Corner. We're really excited that you're joining us with Whitaker Center for the Science and Arts for day 2 of our STEM activities. We have one more coming on Friday at 10 a.m. So we hope you can join with us for that one as well. This one may be one of my favorites because not only is it fun and scientific, it's also pretty tasty. So yesterday, Calving Corner was live. The Bollinger family hosted Calving Corner and live streamed from their farm. We were able to see 2 births and then a surprise one that we just happened to see when we were walking past the pens. If you missed it, you can still catch it on the Calving Corner YouTube channel under Calving Corner 2021 Virtual Farm Show, and you'll be able to see the activities there that in the segments that you missed yesterday. That includes the live births, and it also includes some of our Q&As with our farmers and our veterinarians. They were really cool. So if you like that and you want to see more of that, join us next Tuesday, January 19th. We'll be live streaming from another farm, Meadowbrook Holsteins, the Hoover family in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. And so 2 more activities coming up, at least, if not, and there'll be 3, but Friday, the 10th, the next Whitaker segment, Tuesday, the 19th will be another live Calving Corner. And then Thursday, the 28th of January will also be a live Calving Corner. So thanks for joining us. I'm going to send it over to Whitaker. And this is a good one, guys.
All right, thank you, Miriam. My name is Amanda. I'm coming to you from the Whitaker Center in Harrisburg. We are a science center, we are a performing arts venue, and we are a digital cinema as well. So you can come visit us to see a live show, to watch a documentary or a film in our theater, or you can explore our 2 floors of science exhibits that are really hands-on and fun. But today I'm really happy to be able to Zoom with you all wherever you might be. And we're going to do something really awesome today because it involves things that you can taste, which is always my favorite kind of science experiment. We are going to be making one of the best dairy products there is. We are going to be making butter today. So before we get into that, let's back up a little bit. And I want you guys to think about what we mean when we're talking about dairy products. Take a minute, brainstorm as many as you can think of with a grown-up or a friend around you. We'll think about all the different kinds of dairy products we can name. Let's think for a second here. And if you're thinking things like ice cream, like sour cream, of course, milk, we could also say cream cheese, whipped cream, of course, butter. Those are all dairy products and they all start from milk. As we know, milk comes from cows. And today we're going to be exploring just part of that process that turns milk into other dairy products. So if you're following along at home or for school, there's a couple things that you'll need if you want to make some butter of your own today. The first and the most important is going to be heavy whipping cream. You can get this at your grocery store. You don't need a lot. This is a really big container. All you need is about a cup today, even less if you're going to use a small container. The other really important thing that you will need is a container with a lid, and that lid should seal really, really tightly because we are going to be doing a lot of shaking of this container today, and we don't want our cream to go flying all over the place. Science can get messy, but we want to try our best to make sure that things don't get everywhere. So those are the 2 most important things. If you have these 2 things, you can make butter. There are some other things that are going to be really helpful today as well. One of them is a bowl, just kind of like this, and some plain water. This can come from your sink. And then you're also going to want 2 storage containers for when you're finished. I'm going to tell you why we need 2 in just a little bit, but hold off on that for now. And then it's also very helpful to have some paper towels because, like I said, we're doing science and science can get really, really messy. I'm definitely going to want these for cleanup as we go along here today. So if you have all of these things ahead of you, you are all ready to make some butter. So we're going to start by kind of looking at our heavy cream here. Since I'm a scientist, I like to make a lot of observations as I go. So we're going to make some observations here. You're going to pour out some of your heavy cream into your container, and you want to only fill whatever container you're using about halfway. So I'm going to pour some of this out, and as you're pouring, make some observations about what you're noticing about the heavy cream. To me, it looks a lot like milk. It's a little thicker than milk. I'm going to do a little smell test here. And it also smells like milk. It is not milk, however, it is cream. So if you've never heard of heavy cream before, this comes from regular milk that comes from a cow. When you leave that milk sitting out, over time, it starts to separate because milk is made up of two different types of molecules or building blocks. One of those is a water molecule, and one of those is a fat molecule. The water molecules and the fat molecules, they don't like to be right next to each other. So as they sit, they like to separate and pull apart. The cream is those fat molecules. They separate and they actually float up to the top of your milk. So you can collect it, skim it off the top, and this makes a really, really good addition to recipes. To some people like to make whipped cream, different kinds of icing out of it. But today we're going to be using it to make our butter. So the cream is about 40% fat. That's really important because that fat is what's going to squish together, clump together to make our butter today. So once you have this in your container, make sure you have it filled about halfway. If you would like, when you're making your butter, you can also add some sugar or some salt to change the taste of it. If you like sweet butter, you might also go for something like cinnamon to make it really fancy. I'm just going to leave it plain because plain butter can be used in all sorts of different ways and it's perfectly tasty just the way it is. You can also take this observation thing a step farther. If you really want to be a scientist, you can do a taste test. I'm the only one going to work with these things today, so I'm going to go ahead and do a taste test here. And just notice, maybe we said it tastes like milk, but maybe it tastes like milk, or we said it smells like milk, but does it taste like milk too? So let's find out. Okay, it tastes a little bit like milk, but it's definitely a little richer. And I know that that's because of the fat content inside of the cream. So right away, I know that this is going to do some interesting things here as we make butter today. You want there to be all this empty space inside your jar. And the step that is really important for making butter is called agitation. If you have seen maybe somebody churning butter before with this big contraption and a stick that goes up and down, that's what they're doing, is they're agitating their cream. We're going to do it in a different way today, which is really fun. We're going to shake. So shaking will agitate the cream in here, and it'll help those molecules separate from one another. We're going to be adding air into our cream, mixing everything up, and forcing those water and fat molecules to pull away from one another. So it involves a lot of shaking here. And as I'm shaking, I'm going to be listening to the inside of my jar. Right away, I hear a lot of sloshing around because my cream is still a liquid. As I add more and more air into my cream though, that sound might change. So I'm going to listen and see if the sound changes. This step could take anywhere between like 4, 5, or even 6 minutes. So you're going to need a lot of patience. And if your arm gets tired, you can hand it off to a friend or switch arms here. But you definitely want to keep shaking. And you also want to shake hard enough that you can hear the cream hitting the top and the sides of your jar. So I don't know if you can hear it, but it's still sloshing around quite a bit. My goodness. So as you're shaking, I thought I could talk a little bit about milk with you some more, since that's what this week is all about, right? So the cream that we're using, like I said, it's about 40% fat. This is not necessarily something that you would want to drink on its own all the time, just because it's very rich. The milk that you get at the store or from a farm that you drink is about 10 times less fat than this cream. So you might have heard of whole milk or skim milk. These types of milks just refer to the different amount of fat that is inside the milk. Whole milk has about 3 to 4% fat in it. And then you kind of go down from there. So 2% milk is my favorite kind to buy. That has about 2% fat. You can also get 1% or milk with 0% fat, which we call skim or non-fat milk. So a lot of people have preferences. The main difference is the taste. And if you're watching your health, you might go for a lower fat milk. But what's really cool is that milk has about 9 different nutrients in it that are really good for your body. Things like calcium and vitamin D, phosphorus is in there, and 6 other ones. Even if you're removing some of that fat, you're not removing any of those vitamins. So you're still gonna get the health benefits from your milk. All right, I'm still listening in my jar. I can still hear some movement in there, and I can still feel the cream hitting my jar on the lid and the sides. Right now, I'm listening for the sign that will tell me we have reached step 1. And that will be when I don't hear anything. And once I don't hear anything, I'm gonna take a break and I'm gonna show you where we are in the process. We're almost there. At this point, you might also feel like you're not moving anything inside the jar anymore. It might feel like there's nothing moving around. And you're gonna find out why that's the case in just a second. But I can still hear it right now, so I need to keep shaking. If you're getting bored with all this shaking, it is also sometimes fun to turn on some dance music, dance around while you're shaking your butter, but that's completely optional. All right, I'm gonna give it 1 more second of shaking here because I can almost hear it not making any noise. Okay. So at this point, if you're not hearing anything, you're not feeling anything hitting the sides of the jar, you can open it up, take a look inside. I'll come closer so you can see. So inside our jar here, you might notice that it is now filling up my entire jar with this kind of fluffy substance. This kind of looks similar to something I've seen before. And once I say what it is, it's gonna make a lot of sense. So at this point, we have whipped cream. Makes sense, right? We whipped it up inside of the jar. We added a lot of air. So our heavy cream has become a lot lighter and fluffier. It's whipped cream. So I'm gonna do a taste test here, see if I can notice any differences besides the size. Okay, it still tastes the same as my heavy cream, but it is a lot lighter. It's not as, what's the scientific word? It's not as gloopy when I eat this as it was when I eat the cream. So I have whipped cream inside my jar. If that was what you wanted, you could absolutely stop here. If you want to make whipped cream at home, I would recommend adding sugar to your jar before you start shaking. But we're not looking for whipped cream today, are we? Since we're looking for butter, we have to keep shaking. So we've already added a lot of air to our jar. We've aerated it and we've agitated it. We need to keep shaking to get butter. Remember, we're looking for those fat molecules to clump together. So right now, they're definitely moving around, but they're not where we want them just yet. So I'm gonna keep shaking, catch my breath a little bit, because this is definitely a workout. Whew. All right. So we know that our cream and our milk comes from cows. That's why we're so happy to have partnered with the Calving Corner for this, so we can learn all about cows. This week, one really cool thing that I learned was just how much milk a cow can produce every day, basically. I read that they can produce up to 8 gallons of milk a day. Now, you're not gonna get that every single day, but over the course of a year for a cow, that translates to about 30,000 glasses of milk. So definitely a full-time job milking cows. They need to be milked about 2 to 3 times a day. I also read, and I really liked this, that in Australia, they did a study and they found out that cows whose farmers gave them a name and called them by that name while they were milking them, raising them, feeding them, those cows that had names produced more milk than cows that didn't. So apparently it pays to be really nice to your cows and treat them like part of your family because you're going to get more milk out of them. All right. I'm still not hearing anything in my jar. That's completely normal. And it still feels like I'm not doing anything. But you gotta keep shaking. Eventually, all this cream that's inside your jar is going to start to clump together. And you're gonna hear it hitting the sides of the jar again. And you're gonna see it pooling away from the sides of the jar. So keep on going. Still not hearing anything. I'm trying to use my scientist ears to make the best observations that I can. I mentioned before that milk has about 9 different types of nutrients in it. The most important one that you're probably familiar with is calcium. Calcium is what makes our bones really strong, and it also helps our teeth be really strong. So drinking milk, believe it or not, can help your smile and help your teeth. It can protect them from cavities. And since milk is also really low in acidity, acid is really bad for our teeth. The milk can actually keep them strong and keep them healthy. So if you don't like going to the dentist more than you have to, I would recommend a glass of milk. Oh my goodness. This is the hardest part because you feel like you're not doing anything, but all of a sudden it's gonna get really promising. This would be a good time if you had somebody else with you, a grown-up or a friend, to hand it off if your arms are getting tired. Because the more breaks you take, the longer it's going to take to make butter. All right, there we go. Okay. So we're starting to get some movement inside my jar. Come around and show you. So it's starting to pull away from the sides of my jar here. That's a good sign. It means that all of my fat is clumping together, right? So pretty soon, I'm going to have a solid mass of all of those fat molecules. That's what we call butter. But I wonder if I'm separating all the fat molecules, will I also have water molecules left over? We're gonna have to find out. I wonder what that's gonna look like, because they're not gonna just disappear. They're gonna still be in here. All right, now I can hear it and feel it hitting the top of the jar again. That's a great sign. We're still not at butter yet. Right now we're at very dense whipped cream, kind of like a Cool Whip consistency, if you've ever had Cool Whip. Definitely getting a lot of extra room in here now, though. I don't know if you can see it. We're very, very close. And all of this just came from shaking and agitating those molecules. There we go. I definitely feel now a heavier lump inside my jar. It's very solid. Remember we started with a liquid? That's cool. So once I have that solid, we're very, very close, but I'm still waiting for those water molecules to separate out from the fat molecules. And you're gonna know that that's happening because you're gonna suddenly hear a liquid as well as the solid, which is really cool. So right now I just hear my solid. Oh, I'm so close, we can see it. It's getting there. All right, I'm gonna come closer so you can see this at the last part. So right now, inside there, do you see I have a solid and I have a liquid? That's almost butter. So it just takes a couple more shakes, about a minute more of shaking to get it to be really solid. So can you hear it sloshing around in there? Awesome. So I predicted we would have a solid and we would have a liquid because the fat and the water molecules have separated. And now that's exactly what you can see inside my jar. So I know that the solid is buttermilk, or I'm sorry, butter, but the liquid is something called buttermilk. Have any of you ever heard of buttermilk before? Pretty cool. We'll talk about it in just a minute. All right, once you have given it a couple good more shakes, you have a lot more buttermilk in there. That's interesting. You finally are done shaking. You have your butter and your buttermilk, and we're gonna take it out of the jar and see how it looks. There's a couple more steps. So take your bowl, you're gonna open your jar. I'm gonna do my observations again. Still smells like milk, but it smells now a little bit more tangy than before. I don't know if that's the butter or what. For this part, you definitely want to make sure you have clean hands. You can also wear gloves, which is what I'm going to do, because you're going to get a little messy. It's not going to hurt you. It's just butter. But if you've ever gotten butter somewhere it's not supposed to be, you know that it can be hard to clean up. So for this part, remember we have two things in here. So first, we need to drain out all of that buttermilk. Buttermilk is the remaining water molecules that come out of our cream. It's not as bright white as the cream that I poured in to begin with. It's a little thinner. Buttermilk is really, really good for recipes, and some people actually like to drink it. It's completely fine to drink. I'm gonna do a little taste test of this, see what the difference is. Make sure you have a grown-up's permission if you're gonna do some taste tests wherever you are. Okay, so it tastes like milk. It's a little bit tangier, kind of tastes like yogurt, right? So that's because it's a byproduct or something that comes out of a process. So we have processed it, we've removed the fat, so it's very thin, but it still has great properties in things like pancake recipes. So if you've ever heard of buttermilk pancakes, this is the magic ingredient. And finally, we're gonna get to the good stuff. So with your hand, you're gonna turn over your jar over a bowl and get that butter out. There we go. All right, so it's gonna come out in a couple different little clumps. You're gonna wanna use your hands to squeeze it and form it all together. And as you're squeezing it, you're also squeezing out the extra buttermilk. If you leave the buttermilk on the butter, it can actually make it curdle or go bad a little bit faster. So we want to get most of that out of there. And just to make sure that it's completely off, you're also going to rinse it with some water. That's why I have some water here. So we're just going to rinse it a couple times. Give your butter a little bath here. And you can use your hands to form it into a ball. If you want, you can also, in the true farm show spirit, do a sculpture with your butter. So if you wanted to, you could shape it into, I don't know, heart. You could get fancy with it. You could also use a cookie cutter at home to make it into a shape. I'm going to leave it just kind of as a ball for right now. And then I'm going to put it in a container and make sure that this makes it into the refrigerator so it doesn't go bad. They can stay in the fridge for about, I would say, a week, a little bit longer. Make sure it's covered. And there you go. I'll come a little closer so you can see our final product, our butter. Here's our butter. So you can see it's a nice yellow color. It's no longer that bright white that the cream was. It definitely smells like butter. I'm not going to do a taste test of this just because I don't want to ruin my nice shape there. But so those changes that we noticed are called physical changes. Those changes in shape, in state. So now we have a solid where before we had a liquid. Those are called physical changes in science. Those changes are actually reversible. So if we really wanted to, we could melt down this butter and mix it back in with our buttercream, or I'm sorry, our buttermilk, and make cream again, which is really cool. That's because physical changes are reversible. So I really hope you guys enjoyed making butter with us today. If you try this out at home, just don't forget to refrigerate everything so you get to enjoy it as long as you possibly can. I hope that we get to welcome you here at Whitaker Center soon. But for the meantime, I hope you enjoy the rest of Farm Show Week. All right, have a great day, everybody. And we'll see you very soon back here with the Calving Corner for the Farm Show.